Right, so hi Mahika, hello Ian, hello Christine, John. Um, Mahika, tell me a bit about yourself. Uh, you were the winner of the BT Young Pioneer Award in 2019. How old were you when you entered the award?
As a
And what was your big idea that you won with?
my idea was a smart stick that would help blind people do things by themselves, like walk.
Cool. And what inspired you with that idea?
Um, my mum was helping a blind lady cross a road, but then my mum didn't see a step, so then the blind lady tripped over, and I thought, what could I do to help?
Wow, right. So just an everyday occurrence that you thought might be helpful.
Yeah.
Great. So let me come to you, Ian. This is the BT Young Pioneer Award. It's part of the Tech for Good Awards, which we've been working with you on now for 10 years. This is the 10th year we've just finished. Can you tell me a bit about why BT is involved in the Tech for Good Awards?
Yeah, and yeah, as I say, it's something we've been working with yourselves at AbilityNet for a long time now, and basically what we aim to do with the Young Pioneer category within the Tech for Good Awards is to try and uncover great tech ideas that children have developed based on how they want to solve issues that they care about. So we see examples of how they want to overcome issues, for example, around loneliness caused by COVID, or solving things like around the damaging effects of climate change. And as part of the award, when we have a winner, and in Mahika's case, yeah, brilliant idea that the judges all really truly loved. We aim to support them in developing their idea to help it take it to the next level. And that's also why we ended up working with John and Christine on the call as well as part of this project.
And so as part of the process of the Young Pioneer Award, I think one of the things that you and I have talked about is you didn't really know what help you were going to offer. So how's it turned out? I mean, that is probably following your nose is probably the polite way of
Yeah,
saying
well, it's a really good
going on.
question. Yeah, because obviously until you know who the winner is, you don't exactly know what the idea is and what stage it's at, etc. And I think it was really interesting with Mahika's invention because she'd done such an amazing job of actually designing it from a technical perspective. Actually, when we looked at how it was built, the kind of features it had, we were kind of thinking, okay, well, these all look pretty spot on, and the actual design looks great. But actually, what we weren't necessarily clear on was actually, were people, what was the market like for smart sticks? What features do people really want? How much would they pay? Actually, where would they buy? So actually, rather than it being a kind of a technical problem, it was more that we had some, let's say, marketing questions that we needed to answer before having to help Mahika develop it any further.
And so you delved into the rest of the BT and found the right people. Presumably that's something that BT does a lot, product development and marketing.
Yeah, so definitely we looked at. I mean, I think kind of what was interesting there is BT itself doesn't necessarily make devices such as canes or smart canes. So that's essentially why I thought, well, okay, who are the best people to know how to support this activity and who would know what's happening in this market would obviously ideally be someone like the RNIB. So we have a good connection with John and the team there at the RNIB. So it was just a case of pick up the phone, ask a few questions, and see what happens from there.
Great. So John, the RNIB does do a lot of product development, I think, doesn't it? Lots of different tech innovation. So is this the type of call that you get all the time?
It is, Mark. Yeah, and when Ian rang me and said, "I've got this problem," we routinely get entrepreneurs and startups coming to us with what they think are ideas that will make the world a better place for blind and partially sighted people. Inevitably, though, they are technology-led rather than user-driven, user needs-driven. So we had a conversation about, well, this is great, and the fact that Mahita has come up with an idea, but what problem are we actually trying to solve? So we went back to the starting point, and that's where effectively we introduced Ian to Christine from Open Inclusion, and we were doing some work with them, and the research that they do into user needs, problem-led initiatives was great. So that's how this collaboration occurred.
Cool. And can you just explain your role within RNIB so that we can get the sense of the bigger picture there?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got a title of strategic innovation implementation manager, which is a mouthful, but effectively it means I get to play with new technology, building blocks, and then the implementation part is actually to try and realize some of that, to actually put it in the hands of blind and partially sighted people. So it's a job that is second to none from the point of view of engaging. However, there's no rules. You have to start from the beginning and start again, and that's what the three of us did.
Cool. So Christine, I think that tees you up nicely. So you're from Open Inclusion. Can you tell me a bit about the work that you do in Open Inclusion?
Well, it really is in line with what John was just saying. It's bringing in the voice of people, with various lived experiences of disability or different ages and other specific, needs, and asking, what are the issues and challenges with a specific, context in mind? How might this work for you? And understanding what are the various elements that make something more or less suitable to different people with different access needs in different contexts.
Cool. And
So,
so what?
yes.
And so you just have methodologies built around user engagement and user involvement, for example.
Yes. Yeah, so we have a user research panel of just over 500 people who either all identify as disabled and or over 65. And for a project, such as this one, there's a specific question, which is, there is this, fabulous idea that Mahika has. There was actually a couple of prototypes that had been created with the support of UCL. How would this support people with sight loss move around, with confidence, with comfort, and is it something that would be attractive to them? So we then created a research program that would help, unpick those questions. How attractive it would be, what sort of market there is there, how many people would be interested, and essentially starting with what is the gap? Today people have all sorts of adaptive approaches to moving around in space, confidently, independently. And it might be using a guide dog, it might be using a standard cane today. There are some smart canes in the market, a certain price point and with different functionality to Mahika's. So it was just understanding where might the gaps be in people's mobility today, and where might a smart cane such as this idea fit into those gaps and solve for the needs that users have.
Cool. So John, was this technology that you tested similar stuff before, or was this, or, in terms of the user testing and so on, did it fit in to other testing and research that you've been doing?
It did. I mean, this landscape with smart cane is evolving. There are a number of products on the market of various complexities, and they use similar sorts of technologies. And again, Mark, as technologies evolve, we have to evolve with it. But again, the user needs part tends to stay the same. The trick here is to marry the user needs up with a tech as a tool in the form that's usable. And that was the bit that was missing, I suppose, and how we then potentially could commercialize this to put it in the hands of people that need it.
Cool. So Mahika, can you tell me a bit about how you envisaged that when you entered, how would you describe your stick? What did it have on it? What could it do? What gadgets and widgets did it have?
In my prototype that UCL made, there was only one ultrasonic sensor that had the buzzing that would tell you if there's an obstacle. But in my design, there was two ultrasonic sensors that would detect any obstacles, a water sensor to detect any puddles on the ground. There was Bluetooth to tell you where you want to go, and there was a vibration that would tell you if there's an obstacle in front of you or which direction you have to go, left or right.
Cool. And so you just envisaged something that had just lots of different sensors on it that communicated back and forth to the person, so that, for example, there's a puddle ahead, watch out for this thing. It was an indication to them that something was happening, and it would give them some feedback and tell them to watch out. and the work you did with UCL, you made a prototype with them. So when you entered the competition, had you already made the prototype?
Yeah, we had one prototype that was at my house, then there was another one that was still at UCL.
Right. And so you've seen the idea go from that initial idea all the way through to this research. What's that been like?
It's been really good, and I'm quite proud and surprised that my idea has gone so far. Fantastic.
Well, can I just check with Christine and John then? What were your main findings when you started doing this research? Is there a gap? You mentioned a possible gap, Christine, and John, you said, you know, this is something that people do have an ongoing interest in. How from the user point of view, how did the users respond to these sorts of devices?
I'll start with this one, John, then please jump in. Actually, the research showed there really was a market for this. It was, you know, it has been around as an idea for a while, but there isn't anything in market at the right price with the features that are really what are looked for at the moment by users. So in our first survey, 63% of people said they were interested or very interested in, you know, getting a smart cane, should there be one in the right price range for them. And this was really driven off a major finding that canes today, people do get injured quite a lot when they're navigating with, you know, a cane today, and that object detection particularly is a really critical and important part of giving people confidence that they can move around space and not end up being injured, which, you know, for most people happens quite regularly. Also just not jamming the cane into things, and it might not be a major injury, but just that jam into the stomach or breaking a cane, which, you know, again is a very, very common occurrence that we heard through the survey. You know, we originally did a survey with 75 people, and then in the usability testing, and Mahika told us that she had these two prototypes. Sadly, we got impacted by COVID, so one of those prototypes was not functional at the time, and the other one was locked up in a library and unable to be reached. So we actually had to create a new prototype, which we hacked up based on Mahika's design with a little bit more of the features that she had designed, because as she mentioned, she had designed quite a lot more features than had gone into that first prototype. Ours was very much a hack done by my children actually over the COVID lockdown, but we got it with some of the additional features that she had, and when tested with some, you know, in situ by a number of people with various degrees of sight loss that were all cane users in the UK, actually all four of them said they'd be interested in buying one if there was one commercially available. So it certainly did seem to find that sweet spot.
Mm. And John, does that chime with the sort of your broader picture? As you say, this isn't the first time this idea has been suggested, but cane users in particular, I guess, clearly have a lot of day-to-day issues in terms of the actual practicalities of moving around and using a cane.
It does, and also, as Christine said, in some respects, less is more. And again, any additional technology that we're thinking that might be useful, again, it has to work with the user's current workarounds and their familiarity of how they get about. So it was really interesting to understand from the research what functionality was actually important and what was nice to have, and obviously that has a direct impact on the cost of any device.
Cool. So back to you, Ian. You've obviously learned an awful lot about smart sticks and the marketplace for those devices. Where's BT at the moment with this sort of idea? Is it the sort of thing, because you said you were looking to uncover innovation and talent and so on. How far can you go with this idea, do you think?
So it's really clear, because I think what we realise is that you have to have collaboration in this space. And what we've been working on since we got the research finished, which happened in the summer, that we've been working at, okay, well, who's in the best place to actually drive and own the business case moving forward for developing this type of technology and basically commercializing it, because there's no point in doing something just from a one-off perspective. We actually want to create something that is really useful for people with sight loss and that actually will make a difference to their lives. So we really had to look at how we were best going to do that. So yeah, we knew the price points, we knew the features people were looking for, but now we'd have to look at, well, how can we actually start to build a stick within that actual, against that set of requirements. And so now with John and the team at the RNIB, exploring with some of their existing partners around actually, based on what we found out, can we actually develop the stick that ideally people would like? So it's still an ongoing collaboration, it's still an ongoing bit of work we're doing. But you know, we now have the insights we need to clearly understand what we need to deliver. So you know, the whole process has been super fascinating, and equally, you know, the point now is getting interesting. Is eventually we really hope that we can essentially launch this stick that was Mahika's idea, and actually start to make that a real difference to people, but ideally sell that through the RNIB. So therefore, it's, you know, a supplier that people are familiar with, but also use it to help support the RNIB in continuing the great work they do as well.
Thank you. So I guess that leaves the end of the story with you, Mahika. Can you quite believe where you've been on this little journey? So was it 18 months ago? Put your idea in. And it looks like it might find its way to the shops. So that's quite amazing, isn't it? So and how do you feel about it now? And it's been a lot of work, I guess. You've been involved in a lot of work as you've gone along. But what's it been like for you?
Well, it's been really good because I'm quite surprised, and I like the experience because I got to meet so many other people, and I got to do so many things that I wouldn't have been able to do before.
Great. And what have you learned about user-centered design?
It was interesting to see the feedback about the smart stick and its different features. And I was quite surprised about how the people liked most of my features.
Great. That's cool. And what's your big idea you're working on now? You must have at least one on the go, I reckon. What's the next thing in the Mahika invention pile?
I'm still working on one.
Oh, under wraps. Great. Well, thank you, everyone. And just to emphasize, I mean, the point about the Tech for Good Awards is to bring these stories to light and to shine a light on things that do good for the world using technology. But in the particular case of the Young Pioneer, I think it's really about working with young people. And I don't think, I mean, Ian, you know, when we set off on that year even, I don't think we necessarily thought an idea like this was going to take off. It's incredible to have seen it grow and grow. So thank you so much for the support of BT. Thank you, John, for all the input from the RNIB, and of course, Christine. All the research that's happened there from Open Inclusion has really just demonstrated how you can take that idea from the Tech for Good Awards and then really give it some oomph and get it out there. And let's hope we're going to see it in the market soon. And congratulations, Mahika. You've just done an amazing job there. And I can't wait to see the next thing once you let us know what it is. So thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. And we'll see you soon. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.